What is this garbage you're watching? I want to watch the news.
Are you making headway at least?
This is the news.
Don't you just love cameras? Greetings, guys. How we all doing tonight? Well, anyway, guys, how are we all doing out there? It is Thursday, another goddamn Thursday. Thursday. Oh, yeah. What do we got going on tonight, guys? Well, we got some very, very exciting things happening tonight. At least I think there is. I mean, hell, it might not even be exciting tonight. You might just be dreaming it. But I guarantee you, it's going to be very, very, fuck it, exciting, I guess. Well, anyway, what do we got? Greetings, good evening, Happy New Year, whatever the hell. For the last few weeks, we've been following the continuing adventures of Ish Williams, which is really just a polite way of saying we spent 2 weeks watching Bruce Campbell get the living shit kicked out of him, right? But for 2 weeks, that's what we've been doing. 2 weeks ago, we went into the woods, watched 5 friends find a tape recorder and read off of it. Very, very smart, eh, guys? And because of that, horror movies has never really, heard the phrase, don't touch shit that doesn't belong to you, right? They played the recording. Excellent fucking decision. And one by one, evil took them, knocked them off until we were only left with one. Then last week, we went to Evil Dead 2, except this time everything had changed. The camera got crazier, the blood got heavier, the comedy got louder. Ash Williams started becoming something completely different. He lost Linda, lost his sanity, lost his hand. So naturally, he replaced the damn thing with a chainsaw because apparently prosthetics weren't badass enough, Shotgun came out, the attitude arrived, and when one word, Ash Williams became Ash Williams. But Evil Dead 2 had one final surprise waiting. A portal opened, him and his Oldsmobile, and we're gone. And suddenly the cabin was gone too. The woods were gone. The 20th century was gone. and Ash Williams found himself standing in the Middle Ages, which brings us to tonight. Because if you thought Evil Dead 2 was a major departure, oh boy, you're waiting for this, because tonight we present Army of Darkness, the 1992 classic. And almost immediately, we need to establish something. This is not the Evil Dead. It isn't trying to be, and it really isn't Evil Dead 2 either. Sam Raimi takes a franchise that began as a brutal little horror movie and turns it into a medieval fantasy adventure. Castles, knights, skeletons, sword fights, deadites, and evil version of Ash, of course. A miniature army of ashes, 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88, a chainsaw, a shotgun, and Bruce Campbell standing in the middle of all of it with enough attitude for everybody in the damn kingdom. Still haven't got my hair cut. Trust me, I'll get one this weekend. But absolutely, nobody bothered to basically supervise him, and thank God for that. But that change is going to be at the center of our discussion tonight, because Army of Darkness gains something by going bigger. Scale, adventure, spectacle, comedy. But the question is, what does it lose? And that's something, anybody that knows me, that is, what does it lose? Okay? Because the deeper we're going to get into it, the farther away we've traveled from the nightmare that started everything. Evil Dead wanted to scare you. Evil Dead 2 wanted to scare you, then make you laugh. Then spray Bruce Campbell with 40 gallons of blood, then scare you again. Army of Darkness. This movie mostly wants to show you a good time. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You know, you want to be shown a good time. So the question is whether the balance still works, because tonight Ash isn't simply surviving anymore. He's become the center of the entire show. This Ash has an ego, has an attitude. And also he has a mouth on him that gets him into almost as much trouble as, you know, basically going toe-to-toe with these deadites. He insults people. He screws things up, thinks he knows everything. And sometimes he's a complete asshole, basically. Ash Williams has finally become management material, but somehow when everything goes to hell, he's also the guy everybody needs. You know, that's the contradiction that makes Ash Williams work. You know, and Bruce Campbell gets to take everything he started developing in Evil Dead 2 and push it even further. Sometimes brilliantly, sometimes a little too far, and we're going to judge all of it. Not against the movie we wish Army of Darkness had been, against the movie Sam Raimi actually made. You know, and a lot of people want to say, you know, I'm not going to punish, you know, this movie simply because it isn't scary enough as Evil Dead. You know, that isn't fair. You know, a lot of people want to say, you know, Army of Darkness did choose a different road, and it did. So the question is this a good horror movie? The question is, does Army of Darkness succeed at what Army of Darkness is trying to do? Does the fantasy work? Okay. Does the adventure work? Does Ash work when he's no longer trapped inside a cabin? Does this feel like the right destination? Tonight, we're going to find out. We'll talk all about it. Bruce, Ash, Sheila, Lord Arthur, Henry the Red, the Wise Man, Evil Ash, the Necronomicon, the Deadites, the Skeleton Army, the action, the stop motion, the one-liners, the ending, and one of the simplest instructions anybody has ever given him. 3 words. Klaatu. Barada. Nikto. 3. That's it. Nobody asked him to memorize the Gettysburg fucking Address. But nobody asked him to solve a Rubik's Cube either. So nobody asked him to explain the plot of Tenet. 3 damn words. Remember the words. Retrieve the book. Say the words. Come home. What could possibly go wrong? Well, we spent 3 movies with him. Everything can go fucking wrong. Everything could possibly go wrong. Then, when everything has been said and done, Army of Darkness faces the same judgment as the Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. Fearless decides, my friends. No bonus points because Ash Williams is an icon. No automatic 10 because we love Bruce Campbell. And no punishment simply because Sam Raimi decided to take the franchise in a different direction. Okay? So Army of Darkness receives its official score at the end. 3 movies, 3 versions. The Survivor, has it. You know, that's the way it is. That's what Evil Dead gave us, the survivor. Evil Dead 2 gave us the fighter. Tonight we get Ash the legend. So raise the drawbridge, grab the chainsaw, load up the boomies, and have some. And we're here gonna go. Wait, wrong hand. Never mind. We're screwed tonight. We're going medieval. So let's begin, guys. So that's just what it's all about. You know, we got more money, more experience, more resources. You know, that's where a lot of horror movies, go into. And that gave us Evil Dead 2, a movie where Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell seem to discover exactly how insane they can get together. And that movie, basically told us where this story was heading. A flying deadite appears. Ash raises the shotgun. Boom. This creature drops. Everybody around him begins cheering. And Ash realizes he is completely fucked. That ending wasn't simply a joke. It was the setup. And I mean, it is much bigger. Instead of one isolated cabin, you got a whole kingdom this time. Okay. And somewhere underneath it all, just enough Evil Dead to remind us where we came from. Okay. That was a gamble these guys did. Movie makes money. Make sequel. Sequel makes money. Make bigger sequel. More characters, more effects, more explosions, more everything. Eventually, you're sitting there wondering how a movie about 5 people in a cabin somehow ended with a skeleton driving a tank. Think about it. Because this movie is so far removed from the world we entered in The Evil Dead. Did you really expect anything less? Go back in that first movie. Ash, he's terrified. He barely understands what's happening. Now look at him. This is my boomstick, guys. We've come a long way. All right. We've come a long, long way. And depending on what you want from Evil Dead, that evolution can either be one of the greatest things about Army of Darkness or one of its biggest problems, because the horror has changed. The deadites aren't nearly as frightening. The atmosphere isn't nearly as aggressive, but it isn't trying to do another Evil Dead 2. Okay. We got a lot of stop motion, physical comedy, and Bruce Campbell delivering one-liners one after the other. And within about 5 minutes, he's basically treating them like the night shift at S-Mart. That's Ash Williams. He's an asshole. So that's how we're going to judge it. Not why isn't this scarier, but does that, does what replace the horror work? Because if you're going to sacrifice something, and Army of Darkness gives us plenty. First, Bruce Campbell. We get a lot of other differential this time. He wants to go home. He's not a noble hero. Okay. Ash doesn't arrive in the past and immediately say, hey, these people need my help. Hell no, he doesn't do that. It's their kingdom. Fuck them. It's their problem, their war. Give him the book, say the words, send him home. Goodbye. And honestly, that's part of what makes him funny. That's part of what makes the guy funny. He's given 3 words. Klaatu, Barata, Nikto. I'm able to memorize that shit. So should he. Okay. That's all he has to remember. And he can't do it. Let me remind everybody what this man is capable of. He builds a mechanical hand in the Middle Ages. He understands firearms. He knows how to make gunpowder. He turns a 1973 Oldsmobile into a medieval battle machine. Apparently, MacGyver and Mad Max are living inside the fucking man's head. But 3 words. Nope. Hard drive full, and worse. Instead of admitting he forgot, Ash tries to bullshit his way through it. That's the character in a nutshell. Okay? Ash is cool, but he's also a ridiculous person. He's capable, but he's also an idiot. He's brave, but he's also selfish. He's heroic. Okay? Army of Darkness pushes that version of him farther than either previous movie. Maybe occasionally too far, because there's a point where confidence becomes arrogance. That's another thing we'll deal with tonight. How far can you push this asshole before the lovable asshole comes out? Okay? And does Army of Darkness ever cross that line? Then there is the comedy itself. Evil Dead 2 had slapstick, but this in here, holy shit, we have evil Ash growing out of him, 3 books in a graveyard, skeletons cracking jokes, Ash getting punched, Ash getting thrown, Ash getting burned, Ash screaming. Ash screwing something up and then pretending it wasn't his fault. Basically, Ash Williams has the accountability skills of a 4-year-old standing next to a broken lamp. Hey, wasn't me. Ash, there are 12 skeletons climbing the wall because you forgot one word. It was you. Sometimes it's hilarious. Sometimes I think Raimi pushes it one step beyond where it needed to go. Okay. And that's part of why Army of Darkness is going to have a different conversation around it than Evil Dead 2 did. Because last week we were talking about a movie that, for me, came within 1/10 of perfection. Army of Darkness isn't that movie. Okay. And it doesn't have to be. Things can have flaws. And they're still interesting and entertaining as hell. There's always another idea coming, another creature, another one-liner, another effect. Okay? Professor Nobi's recording, Awaken the Evil, and Ash fought it. Ash survived it. Ash lost a hand because of it. And now, hundreds of years before any of that happened, the damn book is still ruining his life at this point. I put the damn thing on eBay. Slightly used. Some water damage, may summon demons, no returns. Everything has changed, guys. The location, the scale, the gender, but the evil's still here. So tonight, we're going to find out whether leaving the cabin is going to make a difference. Okay? A little bit of what made this franchise special got left behind. Either way, Ash Williams has arrived. He's brought his chainsaw, he's brought his boomstick, he's brought the 3 words, and somehow everybody else is going to have to pay for it. But mostly Ash, because he's going to take a fucking beating. Okay? That sound about right, guys? Are we ready? It's ready, guys. We're ready. That is it. That is it. Hail to the king. And basically, that is it, guys. First 3 of the Evil Dead movies complete. Now, let's do this thing, okay? All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, I know a lot of you basically, like I said, I haven't seen this movie in a long time. And to me, it's just as good as I remember. So what do we got to get from this film? There's one thing we've watched change. Basically, out of all the movies, it's Ash himself. Go all the way back to the first Evil Dead, that Ash is almost unrecognizable. He's quiet, scared, hesitant, and he barely survives. And then when you get to Evil Dead 2, that's where the transformation starts. Ash gets tortured mentally, physically. He loses Linda, he loses his hand, he starts losing his mind. But somewhere in the middle of all that insanity, something changes. He simply starts, stops reacting to it and starts basically fighting back. Chainsaw, shotgun, and then we get that moment, man, where it all happens. Okay, sometimes we take it a little too far. But this Ash is pretty pissed off. He's sick and tired of all this other crap, and he just wants to go back to his own time. This ain't the guy stumbling around the cabin trying to figure out what the hell is happening. Takes control. Takes command. Basically, that's what it's all about. And Ash being Ash doesn't, just simply take the victory. No. He has to give everybody basically a seminar. The boomstick speech. This is my boomstick. And then he talks about S-Smart. Ash, these people haven't invented electricity yet. Okay, I don't think S-Mart has expanded into the market. There's probably not a sporting goods department behind the blacksmith, basically. But Ash doesn't give a shit. He says everything, that he has to say. Doesn't care if they understand it or not. The man has been transported hundreds of years into the past. Doesn't care about all that. And he's still promoting everything. He's still promoting, his own brand, basically. You know what I mean? So that's what he does. It's what he does, it's what he is. It's how it all basically comes about. Okay? So everybody understand all that, and that's where we are right at the moment. Okay? All right. And that's where Bruce Campbell really gets into it. He's not King Arthur. He's not some noble knight. You know, he's a guy basically, you know, that wants to get back to where he was. You know, we got kings, warriors, ancient books, you know, sacred guests. You know, I don't give a shit. Send me home. In many ways, I love that. You know, it's not about, you know, I'm going to be the hero of the piece. And that's something that I really, really like about it. You know, this guy can build a mechanical hand in the Middle Ages. Let's appreciate that. No AutoZone, Harbor Freight, Amazon Prime, Ash isn't clicking. Medieval prosthetic hand, same day delivery. He builds a damn thing that's pretty impressive. Then 5 minutes later, Klaatu, Barada, there goes the neighborhood. 3 words, that's it. And he forgets one. It's amazing how all that happens. Then basically he decides, you know, close enough. No, Ash, not close enough. This isn't ordering a cheeseburger and forgetting to say no onions. You're holding the damn Necronomicon, and maybe we want to get the magic words exactly right. And now you've awakened the army of darkness. Congratulations. And that's where I think Bruce Campbell really understands his character. Ash's biggest enemy isn't always the Deadites. Basically, it's himself, his arrogance. He creates problems. He has impatience. But here's where I do have some criticism in this. I think Army of Darkness, you know, basically occasionally pushes Ash's personality too far. Evil Dead 2 found an almost perfect balance. You know, Ash could be funny. He could be cool. He could be terrified at the same time. But Army of Darkness makes him so arrogant in places that, you know, occasionally, you know, you want somebody to punch him. Fortunately, there is no shortage of volunteers. You know, sometimes he's just a plain asshole. And sometimes that matters, you know, because if you make the hero so damn unapproachable, nobody's going to want to be around him. So vulnerability makes the hero easier to connect with. You know, but Bruce Campbell makes it work. And that's the key to the whole thing. He has charisma, delivery, swagger, physical comedy, facial expressions. You know, Ash thinks he's cool. Bruce Campbell knows Ash is ridiculous. There's the difference. You know, good luck with the skeletons. My ride's here, but he doesn't. Ash stays. He prepares the castle. He organizes the defenses. He creates weapons. He turns the Oldsmobile into something that looks like pretty much Mad Max took a wrong turn, ended up at a Renaissance fair. But that's when the Army of Darkness arrives. Okay? That's when it all happens. He starts the movie, you know, wanting absolutely nothing to do with them. By the end, he's willing to fight beside him. You know, first Evil Dead, survive. Evil Dead 2, fight back. Army of Darkness, take charge. And while I think this movie occasionally pushes the attitude a little too far, there's no question about one thing. By Army of Darkness, Ash Williams isn't becoming an icon anymore. He already is one. Bruce Campbell knows it, but Ash isn't the only one or the only thing that changed, because putting Ash in the Middle Ages means Sam Raimi had to basically rebuild almost everything around him. Cabin is gone. Isolation is gone. The intimate horror is largely gone. In its place, Raimi creates an entirely different playground. So when we're talking Evil Dead, out of horror and into fantasy, that's what it was. Okay? But let's address that elephant in the castle or room, so to speak. Army of Darkness really a horror movie? Is it? Technically, sure. We've got deadites, possession, skeletons, demons, graves, decapitations, and of course, the Necronomicon. Evil Ash basically sounds like horror. To me. Sounds like horror to me. But does Army of Darkness actually want to scare me? Not particularly. Okay? Pretty much unless you have, you know, an irrational fear of Bruce Campbell's chin. In which case, this is basically The Exorcist. And that's probably the biggest mistake, the single biggest one between this movie and everything we've watched over the last 2 weeks. The Evil Dead wanted you uncomfortable, wanted that cabin to feel like a trap. Then Evil Dead 2 started mixing that horror with comedy. There were still legitimate horror sequences, but Henrietta coming out of that cellar isn't simply a joke. Possessed Ash can still be threatening. The cabin still has atmosphere. So funny and disgusting. Sometimes within the same scene, Army of Darkness moves the line way over. Now comedy and adventure are driving the movie. Horror is sitting in the back seat. Horror basically is sitting in the back seat, like I said. Most of us knew that. Probably next to a skeleton or next to fucking some kind of goddamn bullshit. But whether that's a problem depends entirely on what you're expecting. If somebody goes into Army of Darkness expecting the Evil Dead Part 3, meaning another vicious cabin horror movie, they're probably going to wonder, what the hell is all this about? We went from a woman locked in a cellar, some screaming that everybody's going to die, to skeletons making wisecracks. And it's quite basically a weird journey into a lot of different things. But I can't criticize Raimi simply for changing direction. Filmmakers should be allowed to try something different. Actually, I respect what he did, because the easiest thing in the world would have been, hey, let's just do this whole thing all over again. Okay? Instead, Raimi said, no, we're going medieval. We're doing other things. We're taking it where it needs to go. This isn't Evil Dead pretending to be a medieval movie for 20 minutes before finding some excuse to send Ash back to the fucking cabin. Okay? Not doing that. Okay? We have groups of extras, large sets, horses, castles, and battlefields. Raimi can put Ash against something much larger than one possessed person in a cabin. And there's something refreshing about all that. But something is lost. Don't get me wrong. I don't think we should pretend otherwise. The cabin mattered. The woods mattered. Isolation mattered. The idea that these characters couldn't escape created tension. Army of Darkness doesn't have that same tension. Ash isn't trapped in a little room. He's standing outside in broad daylight, insulting medieval knights. That's not frightening. It's funny. And that's what Raimi wants. But I miss some of that darkness. I miss the feeling that evil is unpredictable here. Evil becomes something we can organize into an army and fight on a battlefield. That's a completely different kind of threat. The Deadites from the Evil Dead felt like something Ash, basically couldn't understand. Okay? The Army of Darkness, Ash can shoot them, cut them, blow them up, run them over, launch flaming projectiles at them. At some point, these things stop being demons and start becoming basically crash test dummies. And personally, I think that cost Army of Darkness something. Not enough to ruin the movie, not even close, but enough that when I compare the experience to Evil Dead 2, there's a difference. Evil Dead 2 felt dangerous. Army of Darkness feels fun. And if I have to choose between these two, I prefer the balance Evil Dead 2 found. Because there is something. Never completely knew whether Raimi wanted me laughing or squirming. Sometimes both here, but most of the time, I know I'm supposed to laugh. Okay? The little ashes, the physical abuse, the Three Stooges style slapstick. Some of that is hilarious. Some of it I could take or leave it. Okay? Well, sometimes Raimi doesn't know when enough is enough. Well, actually, hold on. Let me correct that. I think he knows. He just doesn't give a shit. If a joke can go another 30 seconds, he's going to take another 30 seconds. Okay, if Ash can get hit one more time, he's going to get hit one more time. So Bruce, again, hit Bruce. And that's what Sam Raimi says. And when it works, it's fantastic. When it doesn't, you can feel the movie trying, but even then, I don't love every joke. So does the move from horror to fantasy work mostly? Yes. I enjoy this world. I enjoy the adventure. I enjoy seeing Ash completely out of place. I enjoy the scale. I enjoy the ridiculousness. But I do think something was sacrificed. Fear, atmosphere, tension, the feeling of being trapped. That was the blood running through the Evil Dead. Evil Dead 2 found a way to preserve enough of it while becoming funny. Army of Darkness mostly lets it all go. But that's going to matter when we reach the ultimate fearless score here, because being different doesn't cost the movie points, but losing something effective without completely replacing its impact does. Fortunately, Army of Darkness has another weapon. And I'm not talking about the shotgun and the chainsaw, guys. I'm talking about Sam Raimi's imagination. Okay? So Raimi gets to do something he'd been building towards since the beginning. Stop fighting a few Deadites, build an entire fucking army of them. And that works because apparently one Ash Williams screwing things up wasn't enough. So we get the evil one. Okay. And I think in general, it works. Okay. Ash decides to basically improvise when it gets to the point where he forgets the words. That's something that I really liked about it myself. And he doesn't really take responsibility for his own actions. So, I mean, it just was something he did, something that he lost. And that's fine. Because Ash tries to fake his way through most of things. And I think that's what makes a lot of the charm in the movie. The dead begin rising. Now suddenly we have the Army of Darkness. And leading that army, the guy Ash thought he had already disposed of, Evil Ash, of course, because apparently even Ash's garbage disposal has a return policy. Now, visually, this is where the movie becomes something completely different from The Evil Dead. We're not dealing with possessed friends sitting around the cellars anymore. We're dealing with skeleton warriors, armor, weapons, horses, siege equipment. And there's something outside the cabin, which is what it's gone from, to there are about 400 skeletons coming over the hill. That's escalation, guys. And you can feel the influence of old fantasy filmmaking all over it. Is a stop motion seamlessly by modern standards? No, of course not. But I don't care because there's personality to it. There's craftsmanship. There's imagination. Those skeletons don't move like something created today. Good. They shouldn't. That's part of the charm. They feel handmade. They feel like they belonged to this weird fantasy world Raimi had built. And honestly, I wanted if I wanted something perfectly, realistic as far as skeletons go, I'd go stare at the goddamn DMV waiting room. I'm here for the stop motion, guys. But this is also where I have one of my bigger criticisms of the movie. The Deadites just aren't as effective here. And that's not because the effects are bad. It's because their role has changed. Okay? There's nothing really personal about these Deadites as opposed to as with zombies. Army of Darkness turns a lot of them into targets, which is what the overall, point of the view is. Skeletons run at Ash. Ash shoots skeleton. Another one shows up. Cut from one, to the next. Cut that one down. Another one. Boom. Keep moving. Fun? Absolutely. Scary? Not really. At some point, they stop feeling like demons. They start feeling like extras showing up at the wrong fucking festival. The movie gains spectacle, but loses some danger. Still, the final battle gives Raimi the chance to go huge, and he does. Ash prepares the castle, builds weapons,
and turns the Oldsmobile into a medieval war machine. And I'm sorry, the Oldsmobile thing is fucking awesome. Ridiculous? Yeah, but awesome. If you're sitting there saying, I don't think a 1973, Delta 88 could, realistically be converted into a fucking medieval, battle vehicle, you have a completely misunderstood the assignment, guys. We have skeletons, chainsaw hand, magic hook, and Bruce Campbell finding himself. Realism left town about an hour ago. Then the battle begins. Skeletons climbing the walls, all explosions, all of this. It works, and it's entertaining. But I still think the final battle goes on a little too long. Not horribly long, but long enough that the energy starts flattening out. One skeleton, two skeletons, explosions, another skeleton, more fighting. Oh my. Eventually I start thinking, all right, Sam, we got it. The castle is having a bad night. Let's wrap it up. And for me, Army of Darkness is actually, strongest before the battle. The pit, the three books, the little ashes, evil ash. The final battle is fun. Hero prepares defense, enemy attacks, final showdown, victory. It works. Still, evil ash gives the climax something it needs, a face. Because an army of skeletons is spectacle. Evil ash is personal. And there's something fitting about that. Okay. He fought his own hand in Evil Dead 2. Now he fights himself. Okay, that works. Ash is more, you're welcome. But he does show up, he does fight, he does stay, and that fucking matters. And that's why I think Army of Darkness still works despite the things I criticize. There is always something strange coming, something funny, something handmade. Bruce Campbell, without him, I don't think this movie works. I really don't. Comedy, fantasy, romance, action, slapstick, and adventure. There is a lot. Campbell is the fucking glue that holds it all together. And somehow he makes all of it feel like the same movie. The ending, the different endings, the legacy, the quotability, the pacing, all of that. So now we put everything else on the table and figure out exactly where Army of Darkness stands, guys. All right, you ready? Let's do this, okay? By the time, this whole thing reaches its final stretch, Ass has done something I'm not sure he expected to do when this movie began. He actually became the hero. Not a graceful hero, not a humble one, but a hero. And that's what happened, guys. That's what the whole movie led up to. He was upset. He was pissed off because, he'd been through hell, basically. I understand all that. But there's a problem. Evil Dead felt dangerous. Evil Dead 2 felt unpredictable. Army of Darkness feels fun. And fun is good. Hell, fun is great, but it's not the same thing. Not because Army of Darkness is bad. Not even close. It's because Evil Dead 2 had a balance. Army of Darkness chooses comedy over everything else. It chooses adventure. And once it makes that decision, it commits. It knows where it wants to be. This is my boomstick, groovy. Give me some sugar, baby. Hail to the king. This thing is basically a quote machine. Bruce Campbell walks into a scene, says something ridiculous, and 30 years later, something or someone is still wearing it on a fucking t-shirt. That's staying power, guys. And that's what a good movie does. Okay? This is the version of Ash that became merchandise, posters, Halloween costumes, and whatnot. Okay? So this is what it does. But like I said, there's a lot to love here. So when I look at this trilogy as a whole, I don't see Army of Darkness as the weak movie. I see it as the oddball in the group, the black sheep, the movie that decided, we've done the cabin, we've done the horror, we've done the blood. Now let's take Ash, throw him into a fantasy, and wish and see if the bastard survives that too. Of course he does. Ash survives everything, but still, survives and creates most of the disasters himself. So Army of Darkness gives us Ash the Legend, a loud, arrogant smartass. Okay? So I think it's about time we find out where the Army of Darkness lands on the fearless scale, so to speak. So it's time to grade it, guys. Here we go. Final grading. All right, this is it. 3 movies, 3 completely different experiences. You know, this is what I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you the final numbers. Okay? Here we go. Story and concept, 8.5 out of 10. Concept is great. Overall, okay? Apparently, you know, this was the SATs for Ash Williams, but the setup works. Okay? Direction, 9 out of 10. The camera movement, the weird angle, Sam Raimi is still Sam Raimi. The stop motion, the slapstick, visual gags, it all works. Okay? Bruce Campbell, 10 out of 10. No argument here. No, nothing here that I object to that. Ash Williams, 9.5 out of 10. This is him, full volume. Everything is on full display here with Ash. Okay? Supporting cast and characters, 8 out of 10. Sheila, Arthur, you know, Henry the Red, they all have a purpose to give Ash somebody, you know, to interact with. But somebody to insult, to save. Outside of Ash and Evil Ash, there isn't a tremendous amount of character depth. You know, Ash basically goes from prisoner to hero. Okay? So Evil Ash in the Army of Darkness, 9 out of 10, period. Okay? That's where that works. Practical effects, 9 out of 10. Okay? And also comedy, quotability, 9 out of 10. Horror and atmosphere, 7.5 out of 10. Not a lot of horror, of course, predictable. Okay. Rewatchability, 9 out of 10. That sells itself. Okay. Overall, 9.5, legacy and overall impact. Okay. 9.5, you know, is where we end up putting everything together. I see a movie with a hell of a lot going for it. Okay. A lot of it going for it. Okay. Bruce Campbell is fantastic. Sam Raimi's imagination is everywhere. Ash Williams is fully realized. This movie is funny. It's weird, but I also see exactly why it lands below the first 2 movies for me. You know, Army of Darkness loses that incredible balance Evil Dead 2 found. Evil Dead 2 can make me laugh, gross me out, and make me feel uncomfortable. Kiss Your Nerves Goodbye. Never felt better. The Evil Dead got a 9.7 from me. Evil Dead 2 earned a 9.9 from me. And my official fearless score for Army of Darkness is 8.9 out of 10. Now, an 8.9, very good movie, a hugely entertaining movie, a movie I'll gladly watch again, but it's not the strongest chapter of this trilogy, and that's okay, because Army of Darkness doesn't need to be that. Doesn't need to be the Evil Dead. It became something completely different. Fantasy, adventure, comedy, action, a monster movie. If you want to fear, go back to the fucking cabin. If you want the perfect mixture of horror and insanity, you go back to Evil Dead 2. But if you want Bruce Campbell standing in front of a medieval knights, holding up a shotgun, insulting everybody, and basically driving a weaponized car, and somehow still finding time to screw up for simple words, Army of Darkness has you covered. 8.9 out of 10. Not perfect, not the best of this whole thing, but still one hell of a ride. And absolutely fearless, guys, is what this movie did. And with that, our journey through the original trilogy has come to an end. 3 movies, 3 completely different experiences. And when you look at these 3 movies together, what amazes me is just how far everything travels. We started with 5 friends going to a cabin, and then we ended up in fucking medieval times. I don't know how we got here, but I'm glad we did. And maybe that's the greatest thing about this trilogy. It never stands still. The Evil Dead is not Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 2 is not Army of Darkness. Each one has a completely different personality. If you want pure horror, The Evil Dead. Okay, if you want horror, comedy, gore, and complete insanity, Evil Dead 2. And if you want Ash Williams completely unleashed, Army of Darkness. And for me, with all three are sitting on the table, Evil Dead 2 remains the king, baby. 9.9, damn near perfect. The Evil Dead is right behind it. 9.7, raw, mean, inventive. Then Army of Darkness, 8.9, flawed, ridiculous, completely different, and entertaining as hell. But across all three movies, okay, one thing remains constant. Okay, Bruce Campbell, watched him go from a young actor to one of the most recognizable cult heroes in genre history. Ash, chainsaw, boomstick attitude, chin, God, chin. There should probably be a separate acting credit for that thing. And somehow, throughout all of it, okay, he can make Ash look like the coolest man alive and then immediately make him look like a complete idiot. And that's not easy. Okay. Bruce Campbell gets a 10. Ash gets a 9.5. This is Ash at full volume. Like I said. All right. And that's what we want. Okay. That's what we want. We don't want nothing else. You know, basically that's what it is. We started with all of this, you know, and it all happened a certain way. Surrounded him with knights. We surrounded Ash with knights, gave him a skeleton army to fight, and somehow turned a 1973 Oldsmobile into medieval military equipment. I loved saying that. I don't know how we got here, like I said, but I'm glad we did. And maybe that's the greatest thing about this trilogy. It never stands still. The Evil Dead is not Evil Dead 2. Like I said, they're not all the same. And that's what makes the movie so good. These films aren't the same. They're not the same, and they will never be the same. And that's what makes everything good. We could choose one or the other, but we can all watch them, and that's fine. All right? So, that closes the book, guys, at least for now. The cabin is empty. The portal is closed. The Army of Darkness has fallen. And somewhere out there, there's probably another copy of the Necronomicon waiting for somebody to say, hey, what's this? Leave it alone, as we got in Ash versus Evil Dead, which is what it is. And of course, 3 new Evil Dead movies plus a 4th one on the way. And those are completely different. So leave it alone, guys, if you see that shit. Just for once, leave the damn book alone if you have to. So here we go. This is me. You know me. There belongs to the fearless, guys. So good night. Shop as smart. And Ash, next time somebody gives you 3 magic words, write them down. Preferably on the hand you still have. Okay? Good night, guys. Have a good one. And see you next time.
The Dive with Charles Sherrod Jr. Live every Thursday at 7 p.m. on Rumble. The air belongs to the fearless.